for me, always as a writer, I really know my opening and I know my closing. And I probably know a tent piece right in the middle of the second act. But there's a big fear. No matter what I write, plays anything, I have all these ideas swirling in my head, and I write a bulletproof outline. Although when I'm writing the actual scenes themselves, I don't look at it. So I know what I want in the scene, but then I put the outline away to just see what happens when I'm writing the actual scene itself. But there's so much that I want to say in a story, but I think it's the fear of how am I going to get from point A to point Z.
We'll talk about this and much more today. Welcome to a Writer's Day podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to Writer's Day. I'm so excited to have you here. I started a Writer's Day podcast in 2019 for you, folks who want to learn more about the writing process and to hear from best-selling published authors talk about their amazing books. And not only that, but how they came to be authors. That's where I'm mostly inspired, is hearing their stories. So welcome to A Writer's Day. This podcast is for you. And if you like what you hear today, please consider subscribing over at my YouTube channel, follow me on Spotify, and leave me a comment. I'd love to know what you think of today's episode. And head over to my website to learn more about me over at artbyruth.com to find out more about my upcoming projects like Fatal Truth. It releases July 28th, and that's book 3, the final book in my Desert Shadows suspense series. And I'll also be teaching some writing workshops, facilitating them this summer. So head over to artbyruth.com to learn more about that. Seth Panitch is with me today. He is a debut novelist, but not, brand new to the arts. He is a professor of theater in the MFA acting program at the University of Alabama, and he has written his first novel. Super excited for you to listen about the story, Antique. It is fascinating. So you know the drill. Grab your favorite beverage, a comfortable chair, kick back and relax as we listen to Seth Panitch talk about his new book. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have Seth Panitch with me today. Welcome to the podcast, Seth.
Thank you so much for having me, Ruth.
Of course. Yeah, why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about yourself, and then we'll talk about your book.
Okay, great. A little bit about me, huh? Well, I am currently I'm a professor at the University of Alabama. I head the MFA acting program. I've been here for 21 years. But before that, I was a professional actor and playwright and theater director. Since I've come here, I've been able to continue that, which is great. The university's really supported that. And I've done 5 off-Broadway productions. I've been able to do 2 films, independent films of my own, both of which have won awards and are still streaming on television. And I've been able through that to direct productions down in Havana, Cuba with the National Theater of Cuba. But years and years and years ago, my dream when I was very young was to be a novelist. And during COVID, there was a lot of silent time. And I was able to think back to all the doors that had opened for me, which have been phenomenal, but ones that I've never thought to even go through. And so fiction was the one that kept coming up. So I found a way to begin to teach myself how to write, because that's a lifelong process. I wish I could have taken an MFA program, as we discussed, but not time to do that. And was fortunate enough to find a great agent and to have the novel sell. And here we are with Antique.
Fantastic. What a great story. Now, I like to ask folks why we do things, because I feel that's such an important question to ask, but also to hear ourselves answer. So why did you get into drama and theater way back when?
Yeah, so theater actually saved my life a number of times. I was a hyperactive kid when I was young, spent my share of time in the principal's office, but I really didn't find a slot for myself. And that's true of everybody who's, in 4th grade. So, my story is not different from anybody else's. But a dear friend of mine named David Saltzman, he was going to audition for the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade play, which was Charlotte's Web. And he begged me to audition with him, and he got cast as Wilbur. and I got cast as Templeton, the fat rat. Maybe it's because they didn't really have to pad my costume to look like the fat rat. But after that play, I never got under a B plus for the rest of my life.
Wow.
It really, there was something about that challenge. I really felt like I was not just good at something, but that it brought something out of me that I really loved.
Mm.
And in college, I went away from it because, of course, you can't make a career in theater, and of course, I have, but who knew at the time?
Yeah.
And I went through every possible conflagration of majors and double majors and that sort of thing, and I loved them all in political science, and I did a little creative writing, a little as a minor, and it was seeing a beautiful theater in college. When I transferred colleges to Occidental, they just built this brand new theater, and they were doing a Shakespeare production. And I auditioned for it, and it was that same thing again. I just felt like I grooved into something, and I had been searching for it. So I said, "What the hell? I was going to try it." And then doors just kept opening for me. I was very fortunate, and I worked very hard, and I've been able to go after a life in theater, and it's been magnificent. But obviously, as we said, there was another life waiting for me as well, and everything at some point, becomes not repetitious, but it does become ground that you've trod upon before. And I have a really great mentor had at the university. He's since retired, and he asked me once, because I was thinking of going to another Shakespeare festival, he said, "Are you repeating past successes, or are you attempting new challenges where you could succeed or fail?" And that really resonated with me. So that's why I'm going through this sort of reinvention of myself in my 50s.
Oh, wow. Well, I that's admirable. And I do respect folks who are willing to get up on the stage and expose themselves, so vulnerable
Hmm.
and to memorize all those lines and everything and to react to someone else when they're speaking to you. It's just, I mean, I dabbled in it just a teeny tiny little bit when I was getting my bachelor's degree. So I just admire you all so much. I've
Yeah, it's
helped,
still terrifying to do that.
I
I mean, to
bet. Oh
stand in
my
front of an
goodness.
audience, it's pretty naked, and I think also when
Yeah.
you realize that acting, I personally believe that there's no such thing as character. There's pinging different parts of yourself that you don't use and maybe
Mhm.
that you're not even aware of. But if it's going to be real and interesting to an audience, it's going to be you. It just may not be a
Yeah.
part of you that you lead with, or like I said, even a part that you're aware of, and doing a role can pull that out of you. But I think the same thing's true for art or music or writing.
Hmm.
When it's done well, you always have to hazard yourself, or no one today is going to look at it.
Yeah.
And just because it's so difficult to get eyes on you when there's so much crud out there. I mean, we're just overwhelmed with mediocrity, which, lowers our standards so much that I don't think people even recognize, great art anymore. I think they're overwhelmed with it. I think what they recognize is something that's very extreme and dramatic. And I think when people are honest today and revelatory, that is extreme, and that does catch someone's eye.
That's true. And as an artist, yeah, you have to put yourself out there. You're
Yeah,
expressing yourself and you're being very vulnerable because you can get rejected. And boy, does that hurt.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you're right. I agree with your professor. I mean, I'm kind of in that place too, where I'm doing some projects that are comfortable, but am I really stretching myself? Am I
Yeah,
challenging myself? So now I'm
yeah.
mixing things up a little bit. And it's important to do that every great once in a while to get out of that groove, that comfort
Hmm.
zone and
Hmm.
challenge yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that inertia is unfortunately the most powerful force in the universe. And when something's working for us, it's really tough for us, to just go do something else. I'm always reminded of that great story of David Bowie. I think this is like 72 or 74, and he was at the absolute top of his career at the time. He was
Mhm.
at the top again, but he was doing Ziggy Stardust, which was like a character. And he was, multimillionaire, and he could sell out stadiums. And at the end of a show one night, he just said, "This is the last time I'm ever going to do it. See you later." And he
Yeah.
walked off the stage, and he completely reinvented himself. And I thought, if he has the courage to do that and give up millions and millions of dollars, then what on earth is stopping us?
Yeah, he took that risk, right?
Yeah.
He risked it all, and we
Yeah.
have to do that. You're right. I'm right there with you. So, but you've written plays too,
Hmm.
and then you did some screenwriting,
Hmm.
and then you decided to be a novelist. What were some of the crossovers? What were some things that were similar and yet very
Hmm.
different between those?
Well, one thing that's really different I would say in the first draft of writing novels is that there's no collaboration. When you're
Mm-hmm.
writing in a play, you're writing so you can get it into development, right? So you can develop with actors and directors and designers and it's not a roadmap in the same way a screenplay is a roadmap for the director and the director of photography and those types of people, unless you're doing your own work. But of course, screenplay is leading with image, and play is leading with lyric text, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the action. So in that respect, it's a little different. It's very different from what we do when we're writing fiction. On the other hand, it's coming from the seed of the same place. But the difference is, as I said, is in collaboration. So I enjoy collaboration. It's very exciting, but on the other hand, it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And what I loved about the first draft of Antique is that I didn't collaborate with anybody. And at first there was a terror in that, but as you get into it, there's a real freedom. And there's an excitement of having to stretch and work muscles that you've never worked on your own before. Obviously, when you're working with an agent, you have to collaborate, and I take my agent's advice to heart. Michael Signorelli at Avitas, my editor at Grand Central, Jacqueline Young, was phenomenal, and even if I didn't do what she asked me to do, I always did something with the section that she had problems with. So I collaborated with them on the later drafts. But there was something terrifying and freeing about non-collaboration in writing. And I think that challenged me in ways I hadn't been before.
That's true. I mean, you are collaborating a little bit, but nothing to the extent of playwriting or
No,
screenwriting. That's
no.
fascinating. Same with as an artist, as a painter myself. I'm doing it all
Hmm.
myself. I don't
Hmm.
have an editor that I run it by, it's me,
Yeah,
my eyes. So yeah, that can be kind of scary because it's you. You're putting it out there to the world saying, this is me. This is a
yeah,
part of me. So,
yeah.
well, now let's talk about your book, Antique. Tell us
Hmm.
about this story and how it came to be.
Well, have you ever watched Antiques Roadshow before?
Yes.
Okay, so and anybody who's listening has watched it before. People bring these great family heirlooms to these geniuses, these appraisers, and they ask them what it's worth. But when you watch a show a lot, you know that they're really asking, "What am I worth?"
Mm.
And Grace Schaefer, who's the lead character of Antique, has lost the answer to that question for herself. She's one of the main appraisers on Antiques Roadshow, adores her job. She adores her husband. He's the host of Antiques Roadshow. Unfortunately, he adores his young assistant. They have an affair. She's humiliated. She's forced off the show. So Grace finds herself galloping a pace towards 50 without her job, without her husband, without her father who's just passed. And he was like her guiding North Star. He was a bigwig in art history. And she was
Mm.
just getting to the point in her career where she could speak to him as an equal. And now she's lost him. So she finds herself crawling off the mat. It's one of these like junior varsity Antiques Roadshows in the middle of nowhere, and they have these. And she comes across this necklace. It's old and it's dirty and disgusting, and these people really need money, so she buys it off them. But what she finds is when she's wearing this old tarnished necklace, she just can't bring herself to tell people that, for instance, grandma's watch is only worth $5. She tells them it's worth 5,000. And she's terrified she's going to get fired. But when they go to try to sell it at auction, it sells for exactly the amount that she says that it should. So what she realizes, she's developed the power, her or this necklace or the two of them together, to set the value of things based on the emotional connection that a family has with it, not what the quote market says it should be. And this puts her right back on track for her holy grail. And every appraiser has one of these, this one lost piece of art that's been lost to time forever. For her, it's a specific painting. And this puts her on the track for that because she's famous again and she has her connections again. But she has to face the question ultimately, is she looking for value in the wrong place? Outside instead of inside. What is it worth? What am I worth? And that's antique.
Ooh, that's
Hmm.
fascinating. Now, what made you come up with this? Were you just watching the show one day and it hit
Yeah.
you? Or,
Yeah, I've always loved the show. So I was just watching it on the elliptical, and this was also during COVID, or maybe a little past COVID. But I'm sitting there on the elliptical, and I'm watching an episode. You may be familiar with this one. It's a famous one. There's an older gentleman, and he's brought in this like ratty old rug, and he thinks it's worth $100 or something. It looks old. It was his grandmother's. And he gives it to the appraiser, and the appraiser just lights up. The appraiser tells him it's worth $500,000, and it is a Navajo chief's blanket.
Mm.
And the guy just starts crying, just sheets of tears coming down his face. And all he can keep saying is, my grandmother, my grandfather, we were poor farmers. We didn't have anything. And what I realized, he wasn't crying just because there was a lot of money involved. He was crying because someone was finally telling him that his family was worth $500,000. And
Ah,
I thought, isn't it beautiful that we still have, you know, organizations that will do that for people? But then conversely, I thought, isn't it sad that we need it? Especially in this age of social media, when we're so programmed by businesses to look at these thumbs up and how many followers you have to be what you are, and it's not. And so that's a battle that I face myself. Am I the summation of my awards, which means that I'm a shark and I have to keep fighting, fighting, fighting for those,
mhm.
or am I something deeper and wider than that? And that's what I wanted to write about in the story.
Yeah, it seems like that's a powerful theme in your story.
Yeah.
Where does value come from?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What kind of research did you have to do for this book? I mean, as like an appraiser, did you have to do any
Yeah.
deep research about that?
Yeah, it took me about 4 months to research this. So
Wow.
first, I wanted to research Antiques Roadshow. I wanted to get a sense of appraisers, and so I researched the British show, which is where it started, and then I researched how it took hold, through Boston, in the United States, and how it grew, and I found phenomenal books by some of the producers of it, and really gave you an inside track of how that happens and how they create the drama, and also an inner look at antiquers themselves, and not just the guests, but the appraisers, and why they do it. They get as excited as the guests do when they uncover something that's lost, that kind of passion to touch history, right? To be a
Yeah.
part of something grand. And so I did get a good sense of that, but I also researched just how to appraise objects itself. So I bought a lot of appraisal books. I bought the same books that appraisers would use. Obviously, now most of the stuff's online, but they still have pocketbooks, that they use for this. And I did research the show quite a bit. I researched Sotheby's and Skinner's because I have some big climactic scenes at auctions, and I really wanted to understand how those auctions work, and how the auctioneers manipulate the
Oh,
crowds. And it's really fascinating to see people shell out more money than they ever thought they would. Um, and the way that it's created to be a sort of jewel for them by these incredible auctioneers, and the way that they can boss a crowd. And so that's really what I did probably for the first 4 months. I also needed to research what this necklace was going to be. And it's a compilation of two historical objects. One is a celestial globe, and celestial globes were used by the ancients to map out the universe. So they would take lapis lazuli, which is this beautiful blue stone from Pakistan and India and Afghanistan, and they put little bits of like gold filament in it to be the constellations. And those were their globes, the universal globes. And so it is a spherical globe on an old Babylonian necklace, because I wanted to give a sense that this piece was very old, that the magic in it is very old and beyond human comprehension. But also, just like us, that it had been lost, that it, like Grace, that it had been forgotten. And so its magic had dried up, just as Grace's magic has dried up. Because, one of the big themes in the piece is, how do we look at age? I have
mm,
two contrasting uh, definitions of it at the top of the book, and one says it's, antique is rare and valuable, and the other says it's old and washed up. And I think that our society specifically, Ruth, looks at age as washed up, which is really
yeah.
pathetic, because the richest experiences that any society has is in its elderly, and I don't think we recognize that, and so they don't share this genius with us, which I think is a loss and a tragedy. But that's hopefully, what people can see as they read this book, and maybe that'll either confirm what they already do, or maybe inspire them to look to their parents or grandparents, or somebody else, to try to grow from someone else's experience.
Oh, that's a beautiful message. Very powerful. And you're right. I mean, we tend to either especially if they're famous older people, we lift
Hmm.
them up a little higher than they deserve to be.
Sure.
Or you're right, or we just look past our neighbor, a little old
Yeah.
man walking his dog, and we don't stop to ask questions. And
Yeah.
my parents were of the silent generation, so getting them to
Hmm.
open up about anything was very, very difficult. But I found that my grandfather, when pressed just a little bit, he would start
Hmm.
to talk about his World War II experience, and I
Yeah.
found out he was a hero, that he had a
Hmm.
Bronze Star and a Purple Heart, and he
Hmm.
still had shrapnel in his leg from his time in the Pacific. And I think, wow, look at all I would have lost had I never pressed him about it, had I never
Yeah.
talked to him about it. So you're right. I think that's a powerful message. And also about the value too. I mean, you're right. We are nothing but clicks and likes. And
Yeah.
as hard as writers were told, you have to have a platform, make sure you
Yeah.
build up your platform. But you're right. I mean, does that really show our worth if we have 5,000 followers or 25,000 followers? I mean,
No, it
no, it
shows we have
doesn't.
25,000 followers. That's what it shows.
Exactly. And
I
so
mean,
it's so
and that's great.
frustrating.
And that's fabulous too. But if you define yourself by that, it means you have to
Hmm.
define yourself when those followers walk away from you.
Exactly. How are you going
So,
to
so
handle it?
right. Yeah. And so, and I'm not saying there's anything against having a billion followers, but I think if that's all you're looking for in your life, you'll die with a lot of followers and
Yeah.
nothing else.
People you
And
never
nothing
met.
else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
What I've loved even more than the numbers of the books selling is when I get to go to a bookstore like a Barnes and Noble or an independent bookstore, and I'm going to one in Dallas on this week. I'm going to be there on Wednesday, and um, and when someone buys the book and they don't know who the hell I am. It's my first novel. What the hell am I doing writing books, right? But when they just off a pitch and looking at some of the reviews on the back of the book, of course, when they take a chance on me, that to me is more special than the numbers.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's that's a gift, and I try to focus on that. It's tough to all the time because yeah, you're right. We're business people too, but
Hmm.
I think the business exists for us to have those experiences, not vice versa. And it's just tough to keep your eyes on that.
It's true. I mean, we are trying to gain our readers' trust, and it is about that. It's about them
Hmm.
trusting us.
Yeah.
You Anybody could publish a book now, and so when we're at these events and we're pitching our stories, we're really saying, trust me, I have
Right.
written an interesting story you may never have read before, so give me a try.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a scary thing to do that.
I don't know, my acting training really pays off for that
Yeah, for
because I'm
you.
real comfortable having someone say no. I'm real comfortable with it. So I
Sure.
don't, someone says
Mhm.
no, you get 15 no's in a row. And I'm like, all right, I work the same for the 17th as I did for the first. And it also helped me when I was querying agents initially. I'd written a
Hmm.
book, Ruth, before this book to teach me how to write because obviously
Oh,
it's such a massive undertaking. And so I wrote something I thought was genius, which was probably crud. And I sent that out and I'm going to fix that book because the core of the story is fabulous. It's just I really didn't know how to write a book yet. And I
sure.
sent it out to 106 agents, and I got 106 rejections. But they were very kind, and I
Yeah.
think at least half of them said, "Hey, let me see your second book," which helped me keep going. So the rejections themselves were really positive for me. But it also, from all the acting, how to take a no. So it allowed me to just keep fighting and know that this was my first book, not my only. And if this failed, there would be other opportunities. And so I think failure is really a friend. You're going to have to find a way to embrace it, or you're not going to make it in any art.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know your why. And that's what I always tell new writers. You have to know the why. Why are you doing it? If it's
Yeah,
just to make a bunch of money and be famous, well, the first time you get rejected, you'll probably quit then. But if you
yeah,
have a deeper why, you'll keep going.
yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you, what were some of the challenges you faced when writing Antique?
Well, first, for me, always as a writer, I really know my opening and I know my closing. And I probably know a tent piece right in the middle of the second act. But there's a big fear. No matter what I write, plays anything, I have all these ideas swirling in my head, and I write a bulletproof outline. Although when I'm writing the actual scenes themselves, I don't look at it. So I know what I want in the scene, but then I put the outline away to just see what happens when I'm writing the actual scene itself. but there's so much that I want to say in a story. That's my first drafts are way too damn long. I've got, my rewrites are usually just cutting. Um, but I think it's the fear of how am I going to get from point A to point Z? How am I going to get through the trenches of the middle, of the real heart and soul of the piece? I know what's flashy and I know what the piece is about. But how do I excavate it? And I think that's something that always scares me a little bit because I'm doing rewrites on my second book right now and it's done. We're going to go out with it, my agent and I, in September and try to sell this one. But I've been working on my third at the same time too, and that's really scary because I'm only 80 pages in. And so there's this sense of I know what I want to do, but it's such a hill to climb. And no matter how many times you do it, and you know this, the height is the same. A marathon is a marathon. It doesn't get any easier. You just you just you just are familiar with the pain.
Hmm.
And that's sort of what it is with me with any writing long form.
Mm, well said. Well, so what's coming next then? You're working on a sequel, or is that the next book or
Well,
no?
it's not a sequel, and anyone who reads the book, they'll see at the end why that it's a complete story.
Okay.
I think my agent was intimating maybe there's a sequel. There's not a sequel. Uh, but my second piece, and even my third, and I think everything that I write, Ruth, is going to have a seed of what's in antique. I
Mm,
love characters who who have to crawl out of the mud. I find that so engaging. And for me personally, it's a character I always love writing about. And I think also it's something that people can always see themselves in because no matter how accomplished they are, at some point they've had to dig themselves out of it. Um, and some people still haven't. And so sometimes reading is a way for them to just hear somebody else be in the middle of the mud that they're in at the present time. I think that's what all art does pretty well.
mhm.
So the second piece is called Harmony, and it's about a musician who almost made it, um, but his band breaks up because he can't collaborate musically with somebody. He can't open his heart to that, but he also can't collaborate in his marriage, so they both kind of fall apart. So it's about the music of rock and roll and divorce and love and redemption, and it's with him finding a tape. It's not a magic tape, but on that tape is a lost demo of who I think is the most famous rock musician of the 60s and 70s. And it's not just a demo, that voice starts speaking to him, and that voice has come back to write one last song. And so they're both
Oh,
going to write a song together, and that's the song that's going to write the rest of their lives or their afterlives. And that's that
wow.
piece. Yeah.
Oh,
And then,
yeah, it
and
sounds
then, yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And so I'm really enjoying that because I've gotten to research a lot of rock and roll and how to write music a little bit, although I've had to cut a lot of that out because I had way too much. That thing was 670 pages on
Oh,
first draft.
wow.
So I've got her down to 323 right now. So she's nice and tight. And my third book that I'm working on is called Puzzling, and that's a thriller horror. That's a
Ooh.
paranormal thriller horror, and I'm really enjoying that too because I'm a big horror fanatic.
I was going to say, do you read that genre?
Yeah, it's my
Ooh.
favorite. It's my favorite.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Okay. That's exciting.
yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're going to be pretty busy.
Yeah,
So, Antique is out in the world right now.
it is. It was released, published by Grand Central in February, and it's at most Barnes and Nobles, and it's at independent bookstores. It's online at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com.
Fantastic. So, listeners, head over to Amazon and get your copy or other bookstores and get your copy. And leave Seth a review. You wouldn't believe how reviews really help us. They inspire us, but also they help our standings too, our rankings on
Hmm.
Amazon. So be sure and leave him a review. Let him know what you think of the story.
That's
And
so nice. It's so tough to get people to do that. But I,
I
I would also
know.
ask anybody who reads the book to do me a favor, and I ask everybody I meet to do this. If they see themselves or their family in any part of the book, I want them to email me. And it's sethpanitch@gmail.com, and just tell me, because I don't have an audience as a writer, so I miss an audience. So if someone finds, them self-reflected in it, I'd love to hear from them.
Oh, great. And Seth also has a website, sethpanitch.com, where you can learn more about him. Take a look at the book, Antique. I love the cover. It's really nice.
Yeah,
It's
it's
very
beautiful.
intriguing. And find out more information about his upcoming project. So head to sethpanitch.com. And Seth, this has been a delight. Wow, I've learned so much about you and about the writing process and your amazing stories. I appreciate you taking time to chat with us today.
Of course, it was a thrill. Thank you so much.
Wasn't that fascinating to listen to Seth Panitch talk about Antique, his first book, his debut novel. And it's fascinating to learn how the fine arts do cross over, don't they? We have writing and visual arts, theater and music have so many parts, moving parts that are the same yet so vastly different too. I think it's interesting how his background in theater helped him decide to become a novelist and to learn how to pitch and learn how to defend his story in those public events. It's really a fascinating life story. And I wish Seth nothing but the best. So head over to his website, sethpanitch.com, or to Amazon, wherever you buy your books, and pick up a copy of Antique and let him know what you think about the story. And I hope that you've been encouraged to keep going on your writing journey, one step at a time. It isn't easy. Like he said, sometimes we have to reinvent ourselves. Sometimes we have to learn along the way about the writing process. But if you have a story that you're passionate about and you feel that someone out there needs to read your story, then you have to keep going. So don't give up. There are obstacles in the way, and like Seth said, it is a marathon, but keep going for that person out there who needs to read your story. And thank you so much for listening. Until next time, God bless.